And we figured what better way to commemorate the Flyers' 50th anniversary season. We've been talking about this interview for a while.
We've been promoting it for months.
And we're like, people are probably like, this isn't even going to happen. This is just an elaborate hoax, but it is real. And
it is time.
For one season, the Philadelphia Flyers did have a mascot known as Slapshot, and the man that played him is here with us right now. Dennis Boyle, the guy that played Slapshot. Dude, finally, welcome to the Philly Hockey Guys podcast.
Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure.
So, the Flyers' 50th anniversary season, as we all know, coming up. And in 1976, the Flyers had a mascot. And it was you. Tell us about it. How did you get to that point?
Well, the season prior was the season where the Canadians actually smoked the Flyers. If you remember, of course, they won in 74, and then in the 75 playoffs, Montreal had the Lafleurs and the Guy Lapointe and all them guys flying over the boards, and we had the Schultzes and Seleskis who were just sucking wind with them little roadrunners. So they beat us 4 straight. They smoked us in the playoffs, and in the off season, from what I understand, they were looking for a way to regenerate some excitement. And I was actually dating a girl who was working down the old Spectrum, and she called me one day and she says, "Dan, I got good news for you. They're going to call you because they're looking for they're getting an idea to put a mascot together." So I recommended you. And I had been doing theater and various other things, so I wasn't a shy guy, and I was playing hockey, so I thought, all right, I'd love to do that.
Now, for those unfamiliar with the mascot, what exactly was Slapshot?
It was a big orange and black Muppets type character. Yeah, it was on the order, I think from what I remember, they got the designer who designed the Fanatic, and they made the same kind of costume, but it was a Flyer with the big leather helmet and the big goggles. It's just kind of a Muppets type of character. So it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to get around in, let alone skate, but I managed. They put me in and I learned a lot of good power skating from a young lady that was teaching me that was with the Ice Capades. So I would go around and do different routines on the ice, and then I'd go in the concourse every now and again between periods and sign pictures. But it was a big Flyer, big orange Flyer with the leather helmet and the goggles and all.
I got to ask you, what was it like the first time that you saw that costume? And as a follow-up, what was it like the first time you put it on?
There's an interesting story there. I just shared this with Bobby Clark the other day. I'm living over in Cherry Hill. I'd see him now and again in Haddonfield. And I was talking about the first game. They worked out a routine with me, and it went to the Rockies team because this was '76. And I mean, talk about getting geeked up. I'm skating around doing all kinds of power move skates in that costume, and it actually became easier than I would have thought when you saw how bulky it was. Problem was you could only see straight out. Yeah, with this big head, you couldn't see behind you or peripherally at all. And I'd walk through the concourse on this first go-round to sign these pictures that they had given me. And some guy comes along, and because I could only see straight out, this guy gives me a roundhouse right in the gut.
Oh, why?
Just because it's still, like Clarky was laughing the day I was telling him, I said, "Bob, you remember in '76 you had a mascot?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "That was me." And I told him this story, and he was just absolutely beside himself laughing because he said, "That seems like a Philly welcome."
Yes.
And the guard was all, I don't know if you've ever been suckered unaware in the gut, but you feel like you're going to die. And I'm thinking, boy, this is going to be weird. They're going to lay me out in this costume, and boy, that's got to make for a strange scenario.
The costume didn't give you any protection?
I was doubled up. The guy, and now you can imagine, I'm looking straight ahead, and this guy comes and sneaks a roundhouse right to the gut.
Oh, man.
So I'm doubled over. This was the debut. This was the very first time.
The first day. And
a lot of fun.
And so what happened? Did the guy just run off? Did they catch him?
Yeah.
Or he just ran off?
Yeah, you know, the Spectrum in those days, the round concourse, everybody's out there trying to go to the little boys' room and get something to eat, and it was pretty crowded. So this guy just come by and saw an opportunity to just sucker me in the gut and take off. So the guard was all apologies. I said, well, first of all, I couldn't answer because I thought I was going to die right then and there. When I gathered my wind, I said, "No, don't worry about it. That's the way it goes."
Did anything else happen like that after that? Did anyone else throw any kicks your way?
People used to yell some things because unlike the Fanatic who can go around in different areas of the stadium, as you guys know, there at that time there was no timeout. So they came up with an idea, this guy Freddie that was running the whole thing. The first guy that interviewed me was Lou Scheinfeld. I'm sure you guys are familiar with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great guy. And he after he selected me, they put me under the tutelage, I'll say, of this kid Freddie. And Freddie had a buddy that he wanted to get in there, said he was a dynamite skater. And so we show up for they interviewed twice, and then they had a skate around. And it just shocked me that most of these people that were there couldn't even skate. This kid, Freddie's buddy, couldn't skate a lick.
Really?
And they didn't select him, so Freddie did a couple of things that were a little bit sinister that I didn't care for.
Oh, like what?
I would make appearances also.
Just
and
like outside of the arena and stuff?
Exactly. Go to a high school or something. So there was one time I brought the costume home. I was still living at home with my parents, and I'd hang it on the line because it became really raunchy smelling.
I can imagine.
So Freddie says to me in his infinite wisdom, "Hey, Dan, I noticed you took the costume home." I said, "Yeah." I said, "It stunk to the high heavens." He said, well, don't do that. I'll get it dry cleaned. So 4 or 5 games go by, and it still stinks. And, yeah, I mean, like Limburger cheese, it's been in your refrigerator for a month and a half. And I said, "Fred, it still smells." He says, no, I'll take care of it. Well, that never happened. And one night I'm in the concourse signing those pictures, and a lady says, I thought it was great when you appeared at Plymouth White Marsh High School the other night. And I hadn't been there.
Oh.
I started poking around, and I found out that Freddie didn't want me taking the costume home because he wanted to, when there was an appearance, call his buddy up and say, "Come on down and go make this appearance." And I certainly didn't do it for that reason. And I just had to tell him. I said, "Fred, I just want you to know," and he starts tripping all over himself saying, "Well, there's no exclusive copyright." And I said, "Fred, I'm not saying that. I just want you to know that I know what you're doing. You know, I was born at night, but not last night, and I know what's going on." You know who was nice to me, guys?
Who's that?
Myrna Snyder. Yeah, that was Ed's wife 3 wives ago. Very nice lady. And she said, "Hey, Dan, I heard what's happening with Freddie. Do you want me to tell Ed?" And I said, "Mr. Snyder, that's very nice of you, but all he cares about is how the team is doing. You don't need to trouble him with this. I'll deal with Freddie." So that kind of got me. But I said, "Fred, you can't kill this for me. I'm a rink rat from way back, and now I'm getting a chance to hang around with the Flyers. So I just want you to know I know what you're doing, and you're the boss, but you can't kill this thing for me. This is my 15 minutes of fame."
Absolutely.
It was terrific. I'd go to their Christmas party, and I had played for years in all the rinks all around and had a really good time doing that. And then this just was like I died and went to heaven. The first game, they interviewed me.
Really?
Came up the runway, and they said, "Hey, we want to do a spot for you on Channel 3. There's a guy named Tony Hernandez." I always remember because years later, I went out to L.A. to try to pursue an acting career. And this Tony Hernandez was the local guy on the NBC affiliate out there. And I had gone to him to see if we could capture this tape. Back then they did it on videotape. But he said, "No, they don't save them because they don't last very long." But they interviewed me where I walked up the runway. Tony Hernandez says, "Let's show the people who the real Slapshot is." I take this big head off, and we do a 5-minute interview for the sports that night.
That's
Very
amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was cool, man. That was really cool. And after that's over, it's like 6:00 that night because it was an afternoon game. They introduced the mascot. They always have a Friday afternoon game the day after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that all the kids can go and stuff. And that's when they introduced it in 76. And so by the time I got home, cleaned up, and I'm sitting here in this apartment with myself trying to say, who in the hell can I talk to? I just did this tremendous thing for a hockey geek like me, you know?
Yeah. So whatever became of Freddie? Whatever happened to him then after that whole thing with him stealing the uniform and stuff?
Yeah, I don't even think he's down there anymore. He must have had an in, and the mascot was this thing that somebody thought of as an afterthought. And then when they saw how difficult it was to do, you know, and then I don't know whether Myrna ever told Mr. Snyder, but with that stuff going on, I knew it wasn't going to have a long shelf life. And it's very difficult in hockey because, you know, you're saying that other things happen. You already heard some of the epitaphs that people would yell at me if I got in the way of it.
Oh, I could just imagine.
Yeah.
And I know because I'm a hockey geek myself, so it wasn't easy to do. And I think Freddie just kind of disappeared down there. I saw Lou, and I was at a club box last season, and I walked up and said, "Do I look familiar to you?" And he says, yeah, you kind of do, and I can't think from what. We had a wonderful conversation, shared a couple cocktails together. He was a great guy, but unfortunately, because it was kind of an afterthought, they put it under the tutelage of one Fred. I forget what his last name was, but I knew he was going to just keep trying to railroad me. And I said, Fred, let the guy do whatever he wants to do. He couldn't even stand up on stage. How could anybody be an NHL mascot without being able to? And there was a lot of incidents. Like I remember when the Sixers introduced one of their mascots, Big Shot, and they invited all these mascots from the whole country around. And we were out on the court dancing around at halftime. And I remember David Raymond was the fanatic at that time. He says to me, Den, did you hear what's going on with that? Remember the San Diego Chicken?
Yes.
Well, this day they had the St. Joe Hawk and myself and David. And he says, that kid, and I saw this for myself, he went over to one of the people working down in the concourse, and he says, oh, I can't go in that locker room and change with all the other mascots.
He was too big time for that?
Exactly. The lady says, excuse me? And I heard him say to her, I can't let anybody know my identity.
Oh.
Like he was a superhero or something. I'm saying, yo, pal, get a grip on yourself here. And Ted Janolis or something his name was, and David Raymond says, do you believe that guy did that? I said, takes all kinds, man. But it's always been my favorite, hockey, just because of the way them guys are. I mean, I made so many connections down there. It was just a great time. Like I said, it was like the Andy Warhol 15 minutes of fame. That was mine, and I enjoyed every minute of it. There were things I had been telling you guys about. Bob Daly, my sister had a bar in South Philly. It was called Kathleen's. It was downstairs at 9th and Catherine. You walk down the steps. Bob Daly, rest his soul, got word of that. And without being a showboat or grandstand, he came over and he says, hey, Dan, I understand your sister has a bar in South Philly. I said, yeah. He says, in that Canadian dialect, he says, maybe I'll get some of the boys and go down there. I said, man, that would be that's a classy. There were so many things that these kids who grew up on farms and worked farms, well, that's why I love the sport more than any other. They're very, very nice, humble kids,
Yeah, absolutely.
Rick LaPointe. There was a guy named Rick LaPointe. Remember Rick LaPointe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Defenseman, I think he was number 3, and we got him from the Red Wings. I'm down the concourse one day because they're going to have a skate around. I wanted to go down. I brought my 2 nephews. They were probably 11 and 12 years old. The concourse down the Spectrum was circular, so if you got around the bend 30 feet ahead, you couldn't see around there.
Right.
So I'm standing there, and I says, hey, Rick, would you do me a favor? I said, there's 2 young kids standing there looking at the pictures on the wall. Just go up. The bigger one is Jimmy, and the smaller one's Johnny. Just go up and greet them like you knew them forever. So I could watch from the corner of this curve, and the kids couldn't see me. And Rick LaPointe, and they were big hockey fans. He comes up and he goes, yo, John, yo, Jim, how you guys doing?
Wow.
Yeah, you got this 11 and 12-year-old kid looking up like they're seeing God himself and just
completely
like
awestruck. Wow.
Great, yeah.
Giving them stories for a lifetime.
Yeah, really. You don't forget that kind of stuff.
No. Clarkie, I remember Clark. Well, my dad bartended at the Blue Line. That was the bar in the old Spectrum. And he used to get my dad to soak his contacts back in the day. He got
what?
Yeah, his contacts, you had to have some special solution before you put them in.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there talking like that, and this is before I became a mascot, but this is back in the beginning. In fact, it was the year they drafted Clark. He's 67. He got a Rookie of the Year award. I think it was like a $500 check. And I heard him telling one of the old writers for the Bulletin, they had a trainer by the name of Frank Lewis at the time, and Frank Lewis's son was getting some kind of serious surgery. And back then, I'm sure, the players, let alone the trainer, didn't make a whole lot of money. So Clarkie tells the writer, I won't give this check for Frank's kid's operation. And the writer and Clark says to him, by the way, and again, he didn't grandstand it or yell it at him, but he took the writer aside. He said, I don't want you mentioning anything about this in the papers or anywhere. If you do that, I ain't doing it. And you never forget that kind of stuff. A guy like Clark would do. And I mean, but a few years later, he had this city, under his arm. I mean, everybody loves him. And he'll still to this day always be my favorite Philadelphia athlete ever. Wasn't even close in my opinion.
What was it like, going on with that with Bobby Clark? I mean, obviously, the greatest flyer pretty much of all time. I mean, what was it like the first time you ever, was around him or met him or any of the Broad Street Bullies for that matter? What was that like?
One of the great things about those guys is it was like hanging with your buddies. They didn't have this pompous air about them. I see Bernie all the time because I live in Cherry Hill, and I mean, they treat you like they're your buddies. And the truest thing that was ever said in the sports world in Philadelphia is when Chiro said, if we win today, we're going to walk together forever.
Absolutely.
When you saw them back then, when you saw them when they were in the meat of them 2 cups, when you see them now, they treat you like they're a buddy of yours, and it's no big deal that they're the athletes and you're the regular schmo. God, I can remember Homer when he first came up. Of course, he was one of the couple of American kids. There was a guy named Harvey Bennett and Homer, and he was rehabbing an injury years later after I was playing in the men's league at Penn, and he came out and skated with us.
Really?
And you're out there playing, and Holmgren's the guy on the opposite line.
Oh God,
that's not intimidating at all.
I was going to say that must have been he must have been staring daggers maybe at somebody at least.
Yeah, of course. You're always everybody's trying to run them so they can say I ran.
I took a run at Paul Holmgren
and what to tell about it.
That's it. Let me just take a run at him. But that was a nice league we had over at Penn, and the Flyers used to practice it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was rehabbing an injury, came out and skated with us. I mean, there was those kind of things that happened. It was, it's just unbelievable to other people who maybe to the 3 billion Chinese who don't even know what hockey is. Maybe it's not a big deal, but to a rink rat, it was a great time, man. I enjoyed every moment. But when I see them now, I just enjoy their company. Bernie's got a boat down the shore, and I got a place in Wildwood myself, and we see each other from time to time. In fact, my buddy was in the car with me once. He dozed off. I was going to show him around in Wildwood, and he fell asleep. And I went in to get some things at the Acme, and I was killing myself because he said, "You want me to go in and give you a hand?" I said, "No, that's all right." And I walk in the door, and here comes Bernie walking out. That would have been a treat for my buddy. He lives out in L.A. now, and that would have been a big treat because he's a big Phillies and Eagles and Flyers fan.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I told you guys about Schultz. The thing that grabbed me about Schultz was that he was the most timid, laid-back individual.
So quiet, right? You said before he was kind of like a quiet dude, really reserved.
Very quiet, and I used to get the impression back then that he had this gorgeous blonde of a wife. I'm not sure if they're still together. Statuesque kind of a blonde, and he seemed to me that he was intimidated. When I would see him in his street clothes, he was always with her. And it seemed to me that she kind of ran the show,
Really?
That's the way it came. But he'd pull that sweater on, and you'd never see a crazier, more transformed individual.
Just a different animal out there.
I still say that when he hammered Dale Rolfe behind the net and none of them Rangers came to his assistance, that sucked the whole wind out of the Rangers team that year.
Yeah, that was and that was also really defining for as a statement as to what kind of team the Flyers were at that time. That was kind of one of the things that solidified it for them.
No doubt.
Honestly, I could never blame the Rangers.
Nobody came to help the guy. And then you said, that's it. The Rangers are done. They might as well get their golf clubs out. You know who else was one of the leagues I was in? Larry Zeidel. Boy, that's a name goes before your guys' time. He was famous for a stick fight he had with a guy years ago. Anyway, he reffed one of our leagues. And he was a guy, I think he passed away a few years ago. He had a rough life, but he reffed one of our leagues, and he was a guy that you did not want to get on the wrong side. I remember one time, I'm telling him, drop the damn puck, will you? Because he got in my face. You want to make trouble with me? I said, no, Larry, forget it.
Just back down right away.
Yeah, whenever you want to drop that puck, you go right ahead.
Just playing with you. You hold it as long as you want. But there was a lot of great stories, and I always remember Kelly and McLeish. If they didn't win and they were the stars of the game, I would wait there in the runway there before they'd go out if they were announcers. But if they didn't win, they were a surly bunch. I can tell you that. Boy, winning was everything to them guys, and they were supposed to high five me on the way out, and they just give me a shot or something, Of course, now,
so they're the ones throwing the roundhouses.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kelly. Yeah,
It was probably Bob Kelly.
Yeah, he's now of course he's a great ambassador for the team. I see him
Oh,
down
yeah.
there at the suites and stuff. And another thing that stands out for me, I went to the Classic when they played the Rangers in 2012. It was a god awfully cold day that day, and everybody would say different things about Lindros. But I tell you what, he was like right near us when we were going in, besieged by people wanting him to sign, and it felt like it was 10 below that day, and he sat there and signed every bloody autograph the kids asked for.
That was incredible, seeing Lindros come back and also even skating, playing with Clarkie too. That was a great moment in Flyers history.
Well, he could have easily said, "Yo, guys, I'm really sorry, but I got to get upstairs and do certain publicity things." But he sat there and signed every one of them. So they're just great guys, and in my estimation, the best sport ever.
Yeah, like you said earlier, that's really what separates, I think, hockey players from every other sports, because I don't think you don't see that in baseball, you don't see that in football and basketball. Hockey, I had a similar experience last year at an alumni game. Brian Propp was out there and just signing and signing and signing. He was out there for, I think, 40, 45 minutes before he had to get in there to play. So, I mean, they're a different breed and a special breed.
And hopefully this year I think they're gonna make some noise this year. I really do. I think, another year under Hackstall, and of course Hexy's doing a great job, and I think they're gonna make some noise this year.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of made a bit of a splash last year for first season under Hackstall, getting to the playoffs. Now that we're going to talk about, the current state of the Flyers, and of course, we're always willing to jump right into that. And of course, your opinion is one that we value a lot on the show, because this isn't our first time talking to each other. What did you think about last season, and who was your standout player for the Flyers last year?
It had to be Ghost.
Yep.
When he came up, and I know from playing, when you have that guy that gives you that kind of a boot, I mean, in my opinion, he was the thing that turned it all around after Christmas, and he just gave them so much more confidence. And now you go out on the ice cocky rather than waiting to make a mistake, and I think he provided that to them. And I see the same thing this year, and the whole team got energized as a result of him. And the guy's got talent. Like, you watch him. It's funny because a lot of people that love hockey, they never really played, but boy, some of the things he does, you just sit there with your jaw dropping.
Yeah, he's got great, command, and he's got great hockey sense. He's got great vision.
And you're seeing it in the Worlds right now.
Yeah, too. that goal he had the other night, and then he picked up a pretty nice assist the other night as well.
Yep, yeah. The Neuwirth in that last game, I mean, I had said to friends of mine, because a lot of people will come to me and say, "What do you think, my family?" And I said, "Well, they're in way over their heads against these Capitals, But if this kid comes in and stands on his head, they can make a game of it. And boy, damned if he didn't."
Yeah, that one game was an electric performance, and that really, just talking about what you mentioned about Ghost, that Neuwirth's performance in that game really energized that team. Although they kind of dropped off a little bit afterwards, but that game was something special.
No doubt. So I don't know. I guess they'll share duty again this year, and if they can get a little bit more punch in their offense, they'll be fine, because this coach really knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean...
And I always thought, isn't it odd that a guy named Hextall hires a guy named Hackstall?
we trip over that every time.
Yeah, we love it, though, man. It sounds like a law firm.
Oh, my God. I said, I don't know if that affects anybody else, but to me, that's one of the oddest things of this whole deal, is that I think Hexy's son played for him.
Yep.
Yeah, Brett Hextall. He played at North Dakota.
Yeah, so things are looking good. I mean, the Philly landscape is looking good, but I really think the Flyers are going to make some noise this year.
Yeah, youth movement is definitely a thing. And that's the thing, Dennis. That's what I wanted to go to next, is what we wanted to go to next. Training camp right around the corner. Eyes are going to be on players like Provorov, Konechny, Moren, Sanheim. What players do you think have possibly the best chance of maybe making it up and skating a few games with the big club this year?
Yeah, from some of the films that I've seen, Provorov has a shot. The problem is with him and Konechny is because of their age. If they don't make the big club, they can't play for the Phantoms. So I would imagine the way Hextall is with his patience, they're going to spend another year in juniors. But they're kids that are ready to make the jump.
Yeah, there's definitely that buzz of like optimism that they might make it, but like you just said, and I mean it's pretty much a known fact now that Hextall is pretty much staying the course with the whole patience thing.
Yeah, they need a couple guys that can fill up the net.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you look even in that year 76 with the Flyers. That was the year before when Leach had 80 goals, 61 in the regular season.
Yeah,
80 goals.
Now a guy gets 30 and they're praising him like he should be in the Hall of Fame. It's unbelievable. And the way they talk about, Gretzky was a different game. It sure was a different game. It was harder back then.
Right.
Guys could grab you and, you had 2 guys, 3 guys on a team that would try to knock your head off. I mean, these leagues I played in took to that too. It became, in the men's leagues where you'd play because the Flyers made their mark that way, that's the way kids would play. I remember getting clipped on a face-off, and they rushed me to Will's eye, and the doctor says, "Son, you're lucky." He's stitching me up. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, 2 inches to the left, you'd have lost your eye. And I said, "Yeah, but 2 inches to the right, you'd have never hit me at all." And the eye doctor says, "That's pretty good. I never thought of that." I said, "You're too negative, Doc." That was a harder game, in my opinion, back then when they could grab and clutch and, than it is now. So in my estimation, Gretzky was the greatest I ever saw.
He certainly is. They don't call him the great one for nothing.
Exactly. And think about a kid who at the time he's, let's say, 11 years old, and he's dominating leagues of kids that are 16 and 17 that want to run them through the boards. And he's dominating. He's not just breaking records. He's creating a whole new book.
Yeah, and he also
still kept his composure. Always had a level head on his shoulder. Still to this day says Gordy was the best player ever.
He also grew up a Bobby Clark fan, too. He said that he studied a lot of the way that Bobby Clark played because of his size, because of his stature, and the way that he, had vision for the puck. Gretzky would map that out, and he, basically modeled the way that he played after Bobby Clark is what I've also heard as well.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Well, how about the famed 76 Summit when Clark broke Carlwall's ankle? I mean, he wanted to. I used to like when he was the GM and people would say, "Why don't you draft any of these Russians?" He goes, "Because I don't like them." How am I going to draft these guys for when I don't like them? They had an interview with him after that summit saying, "We trade sticks and all, and these guys are complaining that our sticks aren't good enough." He goes, "That's why I can't stand them." But they've adjusted that whole outlook now.
Yeah, both of their first-round picks the last 2 years have been Russians.
Yeah, we were just about to bring up that point that, we actually mentioned that, I think, before on a podcast following the draft where they're like, the way to honor Ed Snyder's memory, first person we pick is a Russian.
Yeah.
From what everybody says, this kid's going to be the real deal in a couple of years. So
yeah.
I hope so.
The whole world's different, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
There was one other story that just popped into my head
do it.
Yep, absolutely.
Totally.
When I became the mascot and all these other people, and when we went out and skated, I kind of said, I hate to be cocky, but in my head I'm saying, I got this thing wrapped up. These poor people can't skate a lick. So when they picked me, then they wanted me to work on power skating, which was a tremendous tool back then.
Right.
And a lot of the NHL teams went to getting these figure skaters to teach them power skating moves. And man, if that did not help my game in the men's leagues I played in, because you learn how to use your edges. And this gal, this little pixie little thing from the Ice Capade, I could tell she's trying to get next to me a little bit. And I'm thinking, oh, isn't this interesting? Because those figure skaters, when we'd be out skating, always looked at hockey players like, Neanderthal. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Especially the Broad Street Bullies.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, Here, this little honey's trying to get next to me. I could tell it. I used to say to her, "Nah, I don't really get together with Ice Capade people. They're animals." But maybe it didn't make my game better in the men's leagues I played in. It was just a great thing. And I could write a book. I went out to L.A. trying to pursue an acting career, and people come up and say, "You were the mascot," and it's just. I'm blessed, that's for sure, and enjoying every minute of it.
Dennis, you write a book. I'm first in line to read that.
Yeah, absolutely.
These stories are fantastic.
I just had a great time with most of everything I did. I like to tell people I've been around the block more times than the ice cream truck.
See, this is the secret to life, you know?
Yeah.
It's just have a good time with everything.
Yeah, and because you were the mascot in 1976, I mean, it must have been like a time where the Flyers were like really nationally known. Like everyone was tuning in to see these guys. It was right before, the Super Series against with the Russians and stuff. Everybody knew the name, the Philadelphia Flyers. Everyone knew the Broad Street Bullies, and that must have been just amazing to just be in on that wave of popularity, that surge that happened in the mid to late 70s.
And don't forget Rocky, how big that was.
Yes.
Right, that was huge for Philadelphia.
And when I went out for the first session on the ice, here's 17,000 people gathered. Nobody went to the concourse to get anything to eat, because they kept hyping, introducing Slapshot. So everybody stayed in the seats. And I go out there, I come out, there was a big, crazy-looking big puck right on the center ice line. I go out with this big-ass hockey stick in this costume, and I'm going around and I'm doing little movements that you used to call one shoot the duck, where you go down, you kneel down, and then you put one of your legs out in front of you. A lot of power skating moves that are difficult to do.
Sure.
I go around, and at the conclusion, now you got to remember, the theme to Rocky is blasting in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I go over, grab the stick off of the bench, go to center ice, start skating this puck that's sitting at center ice all the way down, put it in the empty net, and 17,000 erupt.
Wow.
That's got to be one of the greatest feelings ever.
Oh, my God.
Without a doubt. I mean, and then you're just looking up and you're pinching yourself going, I can't believe this is really happening.
Yeah.
Just terrific, man. And then all the other periphery stuff as a result with it, just a great bunch of guys. So it truly was my time for fame, and I enjoyed every second of it.
Well, we've enjoyed every second of this conversation.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic.
And I gotta say right now, Dennis, I mean, because the season's coming up, man, and, we've had a blast talking with you, and I know that there are probably plenty more stories that you have, and I hope that, like, you'll be at least interested in joining us again at some point throughout the season. We want to make you almost a regular on the show, because you're absolutely fantastic, man.
I appreciate that, man. I'm humbled by that, but I'll be glad to join you anytime it's convenient for you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, this has been great.
Yeah.
Great, I appreciate it.
Now, let me ask you real quick. You're talking about, all the Broad Street Bullies. You're talking about the experiences that you had working on Broad Street in the height of the Flyers' popularity. You mentioned Ed Snyder's wife. Did you ever meet and interact with the man himself, Mr. Snyder?
I never did meet Ed, no. I would have loved to. There was a time, what was interesting was a couple of years ago, I'm at one of the playoff games in Club Box 12, and it was right after Chris Pronger had the eye injury.
Oh, God, yeah. That was...
And I'm sitting in this club box with this young lady who was nice enough to bring me, and we turn around during one of the, after a Flyers goal and the place is erupting, and I go, look at this, the owner's in a box behind us. He was sitting in a box with Pronger behind us.
Wow.
I never got a chance to meet him up close and personal. I'm sorry I didn't, but well, you guys well know how everybody respected him. And really, coincidentally, last year when they started that surge is when they came back from the West Coast and visited.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pure inspiration for that team last season.
I always remember Myrna. Myrna was a little dark-haired girl, just a sweet lady, and I said, "Don't even worry about it, Myrna.
Yeah,
I've had more fun than anybody could imagine. Anyway, don't even sweat it."
And she's the one that started the Flyers Wives Carnival.
She did, and I think she might have started the girls. The girls they weren't out on the ice. Oh, that's another thing about nowadays. Now's game, you get all them girls skating out there and cleaning the whole thing up at every break in the action. That was never done. And when you play hockey, you know how buggered up the ice gets.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
People who say to me the game's tougher now, I don't even want to hear that.
Right. I mean, half the time they didn't even have helmets on either back then.
You're right. That's right. I just saw Brad Morris the other day. He was another guy. I think he was one of the last guys going without a helmet.
Oh, Brad Marsh. Wow. What's it like meeting him?
Yeah, he that guy, talking about humble. Well, you're always meeting these guys and going, wow, one guy's as humble as the next guy. I mean, they're all the greatest of all time. There wasn't anybody who had more of a level head than Wayne Gretzky. They don't get all full of themselves as opposed to some of the other major sports, and with all due respect to them. But these kids are just great, grounded kids that you enjoy being around.
So you said before you never had the opportunity to meet Ed Snyder, but I want to stick real quick with the staff from back in the day. Did you ever have a chance to meet Fred Sherrow?
No, I did not. Freddie was always, and he was the kind of guy, as you probably remember from reading, you didn't go near him. He was always squirrel off somewhere in a room looking at film, and he was 24 hours a day hockey.
Did you ever at least see him in passing? Obviously, like on the ice and stuff when the team was out there, but like in the hallways or anything like that? Did you ever brush past him?
Yep, and he was always, every time you looked at him, whether it was imagined or not, you thought he was thinking of the next power play. He was
just all business.
Constant business, yep. I would say hi here and there because I'd see him down in the concourse, but I never had a chance to. I would have loved to sit and have a couple of beers with him because, well, you know the story in Atlanta when they played the Flames.
When he was mugged.
Yeah, he went in the bar. I'm sure he had a few pops in him, and he was giving people a load of stuff. And of course, he was an amateur boxer back in the day. So
right.
He probably took a handful of guys on. I think Bill Flett had to go in there and rescue him.
They never say too much about actually what happened. From what I've seen and what I've heard about that, Sherrow never really divulged anything about it. They just kind of were just let it go like business, and then was just like, all right, just move on. Like whatever happened, happened.
Yep, exactly. He had to wear sunglasses because I know he had a shiner as a result of that. But he wasn't a guy that would walk away from anything, just like the team. And they always say the team reflects the coach. And Freddie was as tough as they come. You talk about a hockey mind that changed the way things were done. I believe he was the first guy to institute an extra coach.
Yep.
He started looking into videotape. He took a lot of cues from the Russians. And, of course, what he did to the Russians that day in 76. I mean, those guys just still to this day, the greatest thing I've ever seen live, other than Honeysuckle Divine. I don't know if you guys ever heard about her, but Honeysuckle was this exotic dancer that did some wild things. But in the Russian game, when they were warming up, the three Russians skating, abreast of one another across the ice, right wing, center, left wing, passing the puck from stick blade to stick blade to stick blade and back, up and down the ice with the puck never hitting the ice. And that was the greatest accomplishment I've ever seen sports-wise. But then when I saw Honeysuckle do a couple things, she was that might have been a little bit more intriguing than the Russians.
And I think that Sherrow also implemented morning skates as well. That's another thing that really changed the game.
No doubt, the guy was one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And to take that team that he had. Because my team was in a game similar. We were out at the Valley Forge Sports Garden and had this full-scale riot where the cops had to come out on the ice, and they were actually shuffling around to break things up. But the other team was called the Horrendos. That'll tell you a little something.
Yeah.
Guys that were bikers with ponytails coming out of their helmets, and I mean, we had this nasty fight where a guy was gouging one of my teammates' eyes.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and he bit the guy's finger off.
Oh my wow!
And that was back in the day, and everybody wanted to play that way. After that game with the cops out on the ice, I remember thinking, gosh, maybe this game's getting a little too crazy. We still got to go to work in the morning. But
when somebody's losing a finger, I could understand that thinking.
Oh my God!
That was all as a result of the bullies' influence, even men's leagues that were around. Everybody wanted to take your head off. I mean,
oh my God! It was just chopping each other with sticks and
holy
shit!
But you thought that was the way life was in the big city, so you just played along.
Wow! For better or worse, they really did leave a mark on the game, didn't they?
No doubt about it.
So what happened when everything wrapped up, when they decided that they weren't going to do the mascot for the next season? How did that play out?
I just never, Freddie, he wasn't the kind of guy that was going to get a hold of me and try to, explain what was going on. So I just never heard anything about it. And, he just said they don't think it's a good idea because without any timeouts and all, it's really a difficult thing but the difficult part of it was because Freddie was put in charge, in my opinion.
So they just stopped it? It just stopped and there was it?
They just stopped. I kept thinking Freddie was BSing me again and giving it to his buddy to do things, but from all the investigating I did and asking people down there, it just ended.
Wow. So whatever happened to the suit? Do you know what happened to it? Do you still have it?
No, I never. Of course, after Freddie smacking me on the wrist there, I could never bring it home again. And a buddy of mine was just saying, "Bring Irish weekends coming up in Wildwood, and I got a place in Wildwood, so I'm going to go down there with my son, some of his friends." And the one guy said, "Bring the Slapshot suit." No, I never did have it, other than that one time, and then Freddie chided me for that, saying, "You can't take that thing home. That's property of the Flyers. We'll take care of getting it clean."
I wonder whatever the hell happened to it. I wonder where it could be, like, in today's day and age, if it even still exists.
Geez, if that's not preserved, that thing's full of moss right now, I would imagine.
It's full of holes.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fuzz and it was pretty cool, but it did wind up making you sweat, and it was really a gamey smell coming out of that thing.
So it was usually the Ice Capades girls wanted to talk to you before you put the suit on, not afterwards.
Right, exactly. We'd be out there on the ice, and they're teaching me. And believe me when I tell you, they taught you some valuable things.
Mm-hmm.
Figure skaters are real adept at using their edges and making a stride work 100% rather than a lot of wasted motion and cheat. There was a lot of times where we'd be out at the old Radnor rink. I don't even know if that's a rink anymore. I was out there where Snyder lived. We used to skate out there, and she'd like to, "No, you got to do it like this." And then she'd wrap her arm around me. I go, "Boy, you really get yourself all worked up, man." And that just, all that did was reinforce her notion that hockey players are animals. But I was having fun with it,
Yeah. So did you ever wind up like snagging like any kind of mementos, like to remember it? Do you get any like photos, videos, or anything like that from your time?
Believe it or not, I didn't get a thing.
Really?
I had one. My Facebook page has me in the original costume.
Right.
If you guys get a chance, go to Facebook, put Dennis Boyle in there, and then you'll see me in the original costume.
Yeah,
there's not many pictures or information about that time at all.
Because the picture that you have on your Facebook, because we're friends on Facebook, that's the actual photo that they were giving out that you would sign, correct?
Yes, that was it. Yep. In fact, I got one I'm looking at right now in my room, and that was the original thing that I would autograph. I would never talk, like the Fanatic. I would never talk, but I would just sign one of them pictures for whoever had them, and that was their mementos. But no, believe it or not, I don't know why I guess because I don't get all wrapped up in that stuff. And I didn't grab a whole lot of mementos. But other than that original picture, which I still have, which is the one on my Facebook page, I don't really have anything other than the memories.
And thank you for sharing those memories and stories today with us, because they're just absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
We've been looking forward to this, for a long time, Den, because, we've been talking like back and forth now for a couple months, and, vacations and all that stuff with the summer. But we figured now, like before the kickoff of the 50th anniversary season, before training camp and all that stuff starts, we figured now is the best time to be talking to you, and we can't be more thrilled about it, dude.
I had a great time myself, and like Gene Hart used to say, "Let's go Flyers and let's go Don Earl." Now that's probably another saying was before your guys' time, but boy, I was up in section 49, seat 3 on the first row, right under where Gene Hart and Bobby Taylor would announce the games, and loved the game. First game I went to, a girl I went out with for years took me to a game, and the Detroit Red Wings beat the Flyers 12-2.
Wow.
And as bad as that was, I was hooked from that moment on.
How often do you go to games now? Are you a season ticket holder, or how often do you go?
What I'll do? I'll grab some nice. I'm in the twilight of my career, let's say. I have 2 kids. I'm divorced and have a condo in Cherry Hill, and my 2 kids have come with me since the first day of that divorce. So I got 2 great kids for grown now. My son has since moved up, and he's working and living in Manhattan, and my daughter lives here with me. I think my daughter might have been the one who first reached out to you guys.
Yes,
we were just about to say, your daughter was the one that reached out to us, I think, on Flyers Facebook page, and she posted something about you. She posted that very picture that you were talking about, and, I was just like, hey, we want to talk to him, so, and luckily, thank God for her for setting this up, man. A lot of credit due to her.
A couple of years ago, she comes into the condo. She's working the Phillies game. I think she was working one of the beer tubs at the Citizens Bank Park, and all them guys came in. I think G was there and Hartnell and them guys, and she got talking with him. She said, "My dad was the mascot." Now, bear in mind, I'm the mascot before these guys are even born.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of them actually knew that the Flyers ever even had a mascot.
Yeah, or even gave a rat's rear end, too. She comes up to the condo that night and she says, "Daddy, somebody's here wants to meet you." And I said, "Who's that?" And she says, "Down in the car, Claude Giroux's out there. He wants to meet you." I said, "Why in the hell do you want to meet me?" She said, "Because I told him you're the mascot."
Shut up.
I said, "I'm the mascot when this kid wasn't even born yet." I go down. So he did. Now, I'm old school. So she said, I said, "Where is he?" She said, "He's in the car." I said, "The kid can't even walk up the steps to greet me." So I go down, and I saw very quickly why Claude couldn't get up the steps. He wouldn't have made it. He was 3 sheets. As a matter of fact, he's talking on his cell phone, and I come to the side of the car, and he opens the door and wants to shake my hand. And in his current state of mind, he just drops the cell phone he's on. I can hear his buddy saying, Claude, are you still there?"
Oh.
He goes to shake my hand, and I said, "Don't you have practice in the morning?" And I guess he's thinking, "Oh, this old pain in the ass," but great guy. Met him, and then 5 minutes later, she goes, "I got another guest, Daddy." I go, "Who's this?" And she walked in with their goalie, Steve Mason.
Really?
He just had signed, and we were talking, and I said, "Boy, people think you have it made, but when he signed with them, he signed for like the latter part of the year with no contract beyond that."
Right.
And I said, "Boy, people think you guys have it made. You got nothing right now. You ain't got any more than me, except you're going to play with him till the end." But I know that's got to be a tough one. What a nice, well-mannered, considerate kid he is.
Really? You get that feeling from him, like just by seeing him in interviews and stuff.
Great kid, man. You could tell he was raised the right way. But yeah, I go down and see Claude in the shape he's in, and the first thing I'm thinking as a Flyers fan, don't you have practice in the morning?
Yeah, really. Come on, G, get it together.
Yep.
Yeah, but I love all them guys, and that's why I follow every game they play out right to the end. I don't care win, lose, or draw. I'm always following. I wish they would shorten the season, because back in '95 when Lindros was the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You'll remember there was only 50 games that year.
True. Yes, there was. Yeah.
What a great year that made for. But of course, revenue determines everything, and they got to play the full 82. But that 50-game season was as good as it gets.
Yeah, that was. Yeah,
that was really good. Hey, Dennis, real quick, what do you think of the 3-on-3 in overtime?
I love it.
Yep,
me too.
Right.
Yeah, we love it too.
Love it, man. I'm old school, but when I saw it in the first few times, I thought, wow, that is really good. Now we just got to get like a TJ Oshie on our team, because we had some issues with them 3-on-3s. But now we got Ghost, and if you get another powerhouse of a scorer, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, that 3-player set of just Voracek, Giroux, and Gostisbehere, they really made an impact on that 3-on-3 last season.
Love it. Remember when Ghost came down, I think with Voracek, and he put it right on his tape, and then Ghost buries it like up in the corner.
Yep.
That's another thing. These guys that shoot this thing in an eighth of a second and they roof the thing, boy, sometimes when you have played, you go, man, there's a kid that has talent that you can't even teach.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference. Like, I absolutely agree, because I skate and I play sometimes as well, ice hockey and also some roller hockey. But yeah, I mean, the how fast you move and that like split second decision making that you have to do. I mean, you either get it or you don't. I mean, because that kind of talent is unbelievable. I can't even imagine playing like that, and for good reason. You know what? I will never be able to play like that because I suck.
Even when I played, I was what Clarkie would call a mucker and a grinder.
So you were just one of the guys that would be like up in front of the net, try to get the puck no matter
exactly,
what.
And I appreciate that part of the game. The Flyers have this kid, Weiss, I believe it is, W-E-I-S.
Yeah, Dale Weiss, yeah.
Watch him. He's a worker. He's a mucker and grinder. He's not going to get you 70 points, but he's going to do a lot of the dirty stuff.
I like everything that he's said so far in this offseason. I mean, he's really coming in here to make a statement, and he's put out some big statements that the Flyers are going to make some noise.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly why I love Wayne Simmons for that matter, because that's the kind of player he is as well. I mean, he's
and a great guy in his own right. That's right.
Have you ever met Wayne Simmons?
I have not. No.
I'm sure that time is going to be coming soon. I'm sure somebody's going to be a new person is going to be in your in a car in your driveway waiting to meet you at some point.
Beautiful. I'll take it, male or female. I'm an equal opportunity employer. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
That is, you're the best.
Oh man. So so we got to get you back on the show again. I'm sure that like everybody that's listening to the podcast on this one, we wanted to at least give you like your whole episode because we know that you've seen it all, you've done it all. We can't thank you enough for being a part of it, dude.
It was my pleasure, both you guys, and the best of luck to you with your podcast and everything.
So we'll maybe talk to you coming up. I think in a future episode, maybe around the time the season starts. We'll get your thoughts on how the Flyers are playing.
Beautiful. I got a lot of insight in that regard, and I'd love to do that. Let's do it when they're in first place.
Absolutely. Okay. That sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Dennis Boyle, he played Slapshot, the Flyers mascot, in 1976. Dude, thank you so much again for joining us on the Philly Hockey Guys podcast.
It was my pleasure to you and Ken. Please have a great show, and I'll talk to you soon.